folks, this is GreenyXI, welcoming you right back to Let's Play Higurashi. This is episode 197. In the last episode, Rika discovered that the fragment to get back to her own world might actually be a person that she has to destroy. Slightly worrying. And also, she rediscovered her love for... Is it wine? I think it's wine. Alcohol. I think it's wine. And maybe the discovery of her name of Frederica Burncastle when she separates herself from Rika, the girl from Higurashi, and Frederica Burncastle, the witch, who goes through universes and stuff. So it's sort of implying, it's giving us little bits, little snippets of sort of her going from one game and universe to sort of the Uminico world, where she's Frederica Burncastle mentioned there as well. So I guess she's going to be across all of the When They Cry series, possibly. Anyways, let's get cracking with this one. Thank you for making my food all the time. Nipa! What's this all of a sudden? Mother's Day was a long time ago. I know she's been nice to her mother, she don't even like her. As I thanked my mother and patted her shoulders, I brushed her head. It was all of a show, of course. If she had the same power inside her as Hanyu, then by touching her like this I'd be able to sense it, even if it was feeble. If I did feel that power from my mother, could I kill her on the spot? I wouldn't hesitate to kill, but I couldn't say I wouldn't hesitate right here and now. Because I would rather she not have that power inside her. And at the same time, I was uneasy about what to do next if she didn't. My mother laughed like it tickled, but contrary to what she thought, I was carefully checking if I needed to kill her, if she was the fragment. Thank you, you've made your point, so please get off. It tickles. My mother told me that was enough, smiling in a way that was not as dissatisfied as her words implied. Even after being so scrupulous about touching her, I couldn't feel any trace of the power. My mother wasn't the one who held the fragment, and I'd already felt my father's head. It wasn't him either. Ooh. Probably a good thing she doesn't have to kill her parents, like. If it wasn't either of the two closest to the legend of Oyashiro-sama, then it was improbable that the fragment was in a person. It was a happy thing not having to kill anyone, but that meant one of my clues was now meaningless. That said, even though the possibility was unlikely, I'd still have to touch the heads of the other people in the village every chance I got, just to make sure. And at the same time, I had to continue my deciphering of the pile of documents in the ritual implement storehouse. Whichever I was supposed to choose, the labour of reading through that entire mountain, or the sin of killing someone, I was going to need much more than a little time. I had lost track of how many mornings it had been since I drifted to this world. And this morning was frustratingly the same as the last world, the one I knew. They said next Sunday was the Watanagashi festival. This was the first time I didn't care whatsoever about it. Yeah, she haven't got that stress now, have she? For Hinamizawa, facing total eviction by next year, this would be their very last festival. They were apparently planning to put on a magnificent show to end things with. My normal world responsibility of performing a dedication dance as the last survivor of the Fude family didn't exist in this world either. Still, I wasn't expected to simply go off and have fun. They would have me help with things that kids could help with, like giving out boiled rice and answering the phone. I'd gotten used to going to school alone too. When I went to school with Satoko, it was always a lively morning, with us running and falling everywhere. But that too was beginning to feel like a memory of the distant past. With several days already behind me, and my mind settled, I'd stopped crying about small memories like that. Everything I did was for the sake of returning to my original world. I might curse the trouble it was taking, but I would never cry again. So even when I met Satoko at the school gate and said good morning, only to be bluntly ignored like always, it didn't make me sad. The real Satoko is an incomparable friend of mine. Even if a fake Satoko ignored me, it wouldn't hurt me inside anymore. Mion wasn't outright cold like Satoko was, but she didn't seem to think of me as any more than one of her many classmates. Reina seemed like she was actually trying to talk to me, but that was because I was isolated. She was acting out of a kind of pity, and it seemed sadder to accept that. So I'd started reacting nastily to Reina's unwanted attention. After just a few exchanges like that, she realised I didn't want her doing this and stopped bothering me. Being all alone wasn't sad anymore. It was only natural I'd be alone as an outsider to this false world, In fact, the less annoying acquaintances I needed, the easier it was for me. That's right, easier. When I started feeling that way, then even if nobody talked to me during lunch, nobody invited me to eat with them, and nobody asked me to play after school, I was totally okay with it. With so few students in the classroom, if I took out a book not related to the class, GA would confiscate it right away. I probably wouldn't be able to read the old documents while she was teaching. So all I could do was wrap them in covers I made from flipping over leaflets and folding them, and spend my free time at school pretending I was reading a regular book. We weren't allowed to bring comics to school, but the unspoken agreement was that you could read novels as long as you didn't do it during class. If I could just ignore the hustle and bustle, lunch break was the time I could focus the most. Somewhere in those countless worlds, there was a time when I got bored with my daily life and read a lot of old documents. Thanks to that, I knew the gist of their contents. I just hoped there was a clue somewhere in them about the fragment rejecting Hanyu from this world. It had been raining since midday. All my classmates had stayed in the classroom for break, venting their pent-up energy indoors. Thanks to that, it was a bothersome, loud, uncomfortable day for me. Oh, what's with that gloomy look? What are you reading? At the same time as those words, my old document was taken from me, and it was Satoko's face smiling evilly. What the heck? I can't read this. Satoko looked at the old document she'd stolen from me with disgust. Well, someone as ignorant as Satoko had no way to understand it. I'd learned how to read classical Japanese from my father, and even I had to go over each line several times to figure it out. Of course, for Satoko, it wasn't about what it said. She seemed more amused at how unsanitary it looked, with dirty letters written on the dirty paper. But even if it was nothing more than a filthy book to her, to me it was something that could hold a clue. When I tried to snatch it back, she threw it to another friend as though she'd seen the attempt coming miles away. What is this? Eek, it's gross. The girl who caught it threw it to another kid, and that kid, after his face scrunched up at the filth being given to him, grinned like an idiot and threw it to someone else. Over here, pass it. Ah, over here. Mion-san, pass. Several of my classmates threw it amongst themselves whenever I chased after it, teasing me. At some point, Mion had joined their circle, and it turned into a classroom-wide bullying. Mion! Today wasn't the first time this had happened. Actually, maybe before I came here, it was always like this. Even in a classroom with just 10 people, an order existed, and so did cliques. Belonging to none, and not wanting to, I was the weakling in the room, and thus clearly the one it was okay to torment. Reina was the only one who said they should stop, but nobody listened to her. My classmates wanted to fool around, and they probably wanted to tell her that I was the only toy in the room, so why shouldn't they play with her during lunch break? But in the last few days, it left heartwarming territory and moved into aggravating territory. This Satoko clearly treated me with spite. When I thought about it now, the accident with the ball in the schoolyard that brought me into this world, she'd obviously been aiming for Rika, who had been just standing there in the yard. Was Satoko always the oblivious to the pain of others? She'd understood people's pain best, because even though she said mean things, she'd been through the worst of anyone. I see. In this world, Satoko's parents were alive, and the villagers didn't torment her. In other words, she hadn't been through the worst of anyone. Personality isn't wholly determined from birth. It's also something cultivated over many events and experiences, of course. With all her lucky dice rolls, this was how Satoko's personality had turned out in this world. In other words, this Satoko was only the same on the outside, but a completely different person from my best friend on the inside. Once I understood that, the sadness of Satoko tormenting me disappeared. And in its place, she began to look like a horrible brat, just getting in the way of my haste to return to my original world. Don't bother me. I don't care what any of you do in this lunatic world. But I'm desperately working to return to my original one, so stay out of my way. Come on, Furude-san. Over here, over here. The old document made its way back to Satoko again. This time, Satoko started teasing me, waving it around and saying to come get it. She held her nose and made a sour face like she was holding up something filthy, earning laughs and jeers from the rest of class. I went straight for Satoko, and of course, she threw it to the next one in line. She must have thought it would make me go over there next. But I didn't care about where the document was. Instead, I charged straight at Satoko. I tucked my nails into the bases of my fingers and clenched my fist. I decided this was the fastest method to explain how important this was, make her understand, and prevent any reprisals, all in a very short period of time. I swung my right fist at Satoko's face. The tip of my fist ploughed into her face below her left eye, leaving an imprint that wouldn't soon disappear. I promptly grabbed a clump of her hair and pushed her to the floor, then took a nearby chair and raised it over my head before smashing it into her a few times. Satoko didn't know what had just happened. Confused by the sudden violence, she just curled up like a turtle. It looked a little crazy, hitting her with a chair like this, but it wouldn't hurt her very badly. I raised the chair, then slammed it down over top of Satoko's upper body, exactly as if to hold her to the ground. I lifted my foot above the chair and stomped on it like I was hammering in a nail. Satoko, you're being a little annoying. I was tolerating you since you look like a friend of mine. But that shrill voice of yours is really starting to get on my nerves. If you come within 1 meter of me, I'll punch you right away. No excuses. Hope that's alright. You listening? I stomped on the chair again and finally saw an expression of fear arrive on Satoko's face. I knew this was the best answer. When given the chance, I had to give it to her straight. But it made me mad. I was the last one in the world who wanted to see Satoko looking like that. I was the one who was forcing her to make that expression. It made me sick. But it was fine, in the end. This Satoko wasn't the one I knew after all. And one day I'd leave this world for sure. Even if I killed her on the spot, it wouldn't have anything to do with the Satoko of my world. That's why it didn't hurt inside at all, seeing her look at me so terrified. Come on, give Rika-chan her book back. Here, Rika-chan. Rena plucked the document from a bewildered classmate and returned it to me. So forgive Satoko-chan, okay? You went a little too far. And stealing my important book and cutting into my precious reading time wasn't going too far? That isn't what I meant. You don't have anything to do with this, so step aside. I just want to get this back. I kicked the chair over, indicating to Satoko that she'd been released. But even that action made her so scared that she was frozen in place. I mean, it's well deserved, she's been a horrible little shit for however long. I didn't waste time going back to my own seat. Then Satoko began to bawl shamelessly, and Satoshi ran over, making a big overprotective fuss about the nurse's office and whatnot. The noise quickly reached the faculty room, and Chie and the principal soon burst in. You alright, Satoko-san? This might leave a bruise. Satoshi-kun, please take her to the nurse's office and have her rest. I'll call Yamamoto-sensei. While Chie was talking, the principal must have asked Mion what had happened in the classroom. Mion spoke to him in hushed tones, glancing my way. Yeah, as if, you know, it was half deserved. She was probably saying she had no part in this, of course. Nasty Mion might say that. She didn't betray my expectation. The principal came over to me and told me to come with him to the principal's office. This usually happens when a bullied child happens to bully back. A side effect of the bullying, perhaps. I was seriously fed up with everything, but my goal had only been to scare Satoko off from bothering me ever again. Now that I'd done that, I decided I needed to calm the situation down. After being brought to the principal's office, he kept asking me why I punched Satoko and lectured me that violence was never the answer. But regarding her taking my book and tormenting me, he admitted she was at fault, and I felt a little relieved. It's a fairly difficult book. Is it from your house, Furude-kun? Yes, something like that. I don't dislike classical Japanese, but this one seems fairly difficult. Can you read this? If I couldn't, I wouldn't have been reading it. You do have a point. Would you mind telling me a little about what's written in here? His behaviour wasn't one out of interest in the book, so much as an act dipping with pity, like he wanted to ease the mind of someone alienated and bullied in class a little. A little? Accepting that would do nothing but further amplify my current unhappiness. I don't want friends anyway. I don't want you to be my friend either, Sensei. May I leave now? I want to continue reading as soon as possible. Furude-kun. It's good to read books, but don't you think you should play with your friends once in a while? My friends are somewhere else, far away. They're not here, so I don't care. Does that hand hurt at all? Huh? Oh. I didn't realise it until the principal pointed it out. I must have scraped the skin on my hand when I punched Satoko as hard as I could. A little bit of blood was seeping from my right fist. Yamamoto-sensei is in the nurse's office, so go see him and get that bandaged up. I will. Furude-kun, school isn't only for studying. It's also for making friends. Would you want to be friends with people who just did what they did to her? I'd like you to take that to... Excuse me. I gave him a quick curtsy. This world's principal wasn't the principal who was allowed to lecture me, so I didn't have any desire to listen. On my way to the nurse's office, I passed the classroom. I met eyes with several students inside, but they immediately looked away. Maybe this will work out. I'm more comfortable with them being scared than teasing me. When I went into the nurse's office, the doctor was just putting a big piece of absorbent cotton under Satoko's eye. Chie, who was with her, looked at me, then walked over with a scary look on her face. Okay, you two. Satoko-san, apologise for taking her book. And Fude-san, apologise for punching her. Satoko, who had been scared and weak in the face of the sudden violence earlier, must have calmed down, since she now looked dejected. She looked like it didn't make sense to her, how she was only teasing me a little, and then I suddenly went crazy for no reason and hit her. If she was like that, there was no way she would apologise first. Of course, I had no duty to apologise either, so I wouldn't apologise first. Come on, both of you. You're going to stay here until you apologise to one another. Chie yelled at us. Clearly making a sour face, I held my bleeding fist out to Yamamoto. Oh, you're bleeding. Take a seat. I'll disinfect it. Both of you. You're not listening to your teacher. Apologise. I sensed that if we kept making Chie mad, she might tell us to stay after school. What did you think this was? Like hell I'd let some school I don't care about do their little lecturing nonsense at me. Every second of every minute is precious. I can't waste a single one. Once I understood that, I was the first to act. As Yamamoto disinfected the wound, I smoothly gave her my apology. Hojo-san, I'm sorry for punching you and stuff. Even I was appalled at how insincere my apology was. Chie probably felt the same way, but she at least appreciated the words. See, Fude-san apologised. Satoko-san, you apologised too. I'm very sorry for taking your book and playing a joke on you. Satoko's own apology was no less disingenuous than mine. I glared straight into Satoko's eyes, warning her never to bother me again. But Satoko was in her rebellious phase. It would take a lot more than that to make her wince. She returned my glare in kind, as if to say she'd get me back next time. Chie sighed, unable to do much about our insincere apologies, and then the bell signalling the end of lunch break rang. Satoko-san, let's go back to the classroom. Fude-san, you come back as soon as you're patched up. Chie followed Satoko and left the nurse's office. I didn't give them so much as a glance and just held my right hand out to Yamamoto. The stinging pain of the disinfectant was somehow weak. The hand receiving treatment didn't even feel like my hand. I suppose it wouldn't. It's Rika Furude's hand. Not mine. Everyone must feel lonely that school is ending next year. Aren't you? No, not really. After living here your whole lives, your homeland will sink into a lake. That has to be sad. I understand how you all feel. That must have been Yamamoto's interpretation of the strained atmosphere in the classroom. If he was convinced of that, then maybe it was fine. It didn't matter to me. Even you had a lot of friends until not too long ago. But everyone you got along with happened to transfer schools at the same time. I'm no stranger to how sad it feels to be suddenly left all alone. Friends I got along with? Tomita-kun, Okamura-kun, and the rest, of course. You always spent time with the boys since you got along with them, didn't you? I think they were pretty partial to you as the only girl in their group, though. I see. Even Rika Furude had friends for a while in this world. And thanks to a stroke of bad luck, they all transferred out together and left her behind. But they're not your only friends out there, right? I understand how lonely you feel, and you may only know them until next year. But I think it would be good for you to make friends with the other kids in class and enjoy your time with them. I don't want to get close to them. My real friends, as you said, they went far away. Very, very far away. All I want is to go there. When did you start talking so much like a grown-up, Rika-chan? I guess I just feel like it. Ever since you got knocked out by the ball the other day, I feel like your expressions have grown darker. I'm worried about you. I didn't know how close this Yamamoto man was to Rika Furude, nor how much of her he knew. But judging from his words, he seemed to be the kind of adult who understood children's feelings, just like Irie in the previous world. When that ball hit her, I think Rika Furude died. If that was all it took to die, nobody could play dodgeball. If he died back then, wouldn't that make you a corpse? Yamamoto laughed a little, but not completely to tease me. It was just to urge me further along. So Yamamoto wasn't just a doctor at the nurse's office, but a mental counsellor for students at a susceptible age. It looked like he wasn't Irie's replacement for nothing. For some reason I felt like opening up a little to him. Maybe it was because he didn't exist in the world I knew. Right now everyone was in the world I knew. No matter who it was, made me uncomfortable. That was why I felt like opening up specifically to someone who wasn't in that world. After all, Yamamoto probably thought I was just a girl hitting puberty. Whatever nonsense I spouted, he would nod and agree. I'm not the Rika Furude you and the others know. What's that mean? Who are you then? For now I've decided to take the name Burncastle. If I called myself Rika Furude, it would be rude to the person who originally had this body. Burn? A German name? It's almost like you're a space alien. Where did you come from? From a different world. If I had to compare it, it's like a world of what-ifs. It's still Hinamizawa, but its history and composition are completely different. In this world, they moved forward with the dam project, and the villagers decided to leave, but in my world it's different. The villagers stood up together to defeat the project, and then the government froze it indefinitely. That's the kind of world I come from. Then the Hinamizawa you came from won't end up underwater. That's right. Even after 1983, we would keep living there peacefully. Sounds like a nice Hinamizawa. I've taken a liking to this area as well, so the eviction's really painful for me. I suppose I'm jealous of the Hinamizawa in the world you say you came from. Could you tell me more about this one in that world? The first step in counselling was to agree to whatever observed story the patient came up with. If I didn't know that piece of trivia, I might have teared up at Yamamoto telling me to continue. But I couldn't resist the temptation to keep going. He encouraged me, and I kept talking. In that world, there was a big protest movement we called the Dam Conflict, and it took years for them to withdraw the proposal. And through that conflict, the villagers came together. Everyone got along. All the students were friends. And we even had transfer students come in from outside the village. And we made a club where we would play games, with me on as the president. And while Satoko was very unfortunate, she was good friends with me. And then, poor Satoko-chan. Why did the village have to bully her like that? If everyone was happy, they shouldn't have been mean to her. They should have let her into their happy circle. I don't say those things to be mean. That's just how my world is. And she might have had a more painful fate than this world's Satoko, but that one was my best friend, one I couldn't replace or compare with anyone. So seeing the way Satoko is in this world makes me madder than it should. You can't tolerate her being mean to you when she looks the same as your real friend? Yes. Yamamoto heaved a heavy sigh, then stared out the window with his arms folded. Looked like the rain outside had let up somewhat, but it was still drizzling. After keeping his silence for a few moments, Yamamoto spoke up. What you're saying is, this isn't your world? That's right. I need to get back to my original world, because this one isn't mine. I can see why you'd want to return to such a fun-sounding Hinamizawa as soon as you could. But isn't there a way to do that? There is, but it's very hard to find. I see. And what do you have to do? A fragment is lost somewhere in Hinamizawa, I think. Because of that fragment, Hanyu, or I should say, Oyashiro-sama, can't come to this world and bring me back. Oyashiro-sama? You mean the deity worshipped at the Furude shrine? It would take too long to explain, but basically, yes. I've travelled through countless worlds with her. This world just happens to be one of the ones I drifted to. So as soon as she can get here, I plan on leaving. I escalated pretty quickly. In other words, normally you and Oyashiro-sama would come to this world together. But Oyashiro-sama, the one with the power to bring you out of this world, can't get in for some reason. Which means you've been left behind like a boat that drifted ashore? Generally speaking, yes. The fragment blocking her is somewhere in Hinamizawa. If I don't find it and burn it, I can't go back to my own world. Where might that fragment be? Somewhere. A fragment has feelings, so it has to be something with those in it. I don't know what kind of object it resides in. There's no proof it's in an object at all. It could be inside a person. I just don't know. You said you'd burn it if it was an object, right? What would you do if it was a person? Hanyu said if it was a person, killing them would amount to the same thing. I'm praying the fragment isn't residing in a person. Who is this Hanyu? A new character? Oh, it's another name for Oyashiro-sama. Hanyu is actually her real name. I think Oyashiro-sama was just a name the villagers gave her later on. I see. Was that written in the book you were reading? No, not exactly. Yamamoto's arms remained folded, and he groaned in thought. Another silence settled, with rain being the only audible sound. Maybe I've gotten nervous. Maybe I'd gotten nervous. But I knew it wouldn't solve anything to talk about it, but I did anyway. Yamamoto was probably wondering if something was wrong with my brain. I could guess that by looking at his complicated expression. Do you think you'll find the fragment? I don't know. Since it can interfere with Hanyu, I figured there would be a clue in something related to Ishiro's hammer, which is why I was reading those old documents. I was searching for a clue to search for the fragment, basically. I see. I do hope you find it. But if it was a person, what would you do? You wouldn't really kill them, would you? It's hard to answer when you put it like that, but if that was the only way to return to my old world, I might not hesitate. After all, from my world's point of view, this world is just a delusion, a daydream. Whoever dies here, they'll be alive in my world, so it doesn't matter. I see. But hold on a moment. This world might just be a dream to you, but it's the real world for me. It wouldn't be good if someone was killed, no matter who it was. I understand your logic. I want nothing more than to get out of here without having to kill someone. Let's get back on track. This Hanyu, who tells you about how to get back to your old world, how does she tell you that? Is it something like a divine message? Or does she appear in your dreams? No, nothing that vague. I talked to her. There's a crystal ball that acts as a communicator between us. Would I be able to talk to this Hanyu as well? That would be the fastest way. If you could talk to Hanyu directly, that would be enough to prove my nonsense true. But I felt uneasy. Even if I could talk to her, Yamamoto might not be able to. Those kinds of magic items come up pretty often in stories. But maybe it was worth a shot trying. I took the crystal ball out of my pocket. That marble is the communicator? That's what it looks like, right? I thought the same thing. The crystal ball's light was extremely weak. As it got dimmer, it was also taking longer to restore lately. After talking to her several days ago and the light weakened again, it was having a hard time recovering. This much light wasn't quite enough. It looked like it needed a little bit more time to recover. Can you see light in this marble? I wonder. Maybe it's just reflecting light. It's very pretty. It's from a Ramoon bottle? Of course not. It's a Fude Shrine treasure, called the Kamu no something, and we should be grateful for it. It's rude of me to say, but I agree that it looks like a Ramoon bottle marble to me too. From the Fude Shrine. So how would you use this to talk to Hanyu? I put it to my forehead. When I do, I can hear her voice. Yamamoto immediately tried. He shut his eyes and let out a low groan. It probably wouldn't work. I couldn't tell if it was because it wasn't me, or because the power was too weak. I'm sorry, but I can't hear anything. What about you? It needs to recover a certain amount of power to talk to Hanyu. Let me have it. It doesn't work for me either. You can't hear Hanyu's voice if the crystal ball doesn't have all its power. I pushed it tightly against my forehead, but all I felt was a cool sensation. I couldn't feel the power in it. I see. That's a shame. In a few days, some other power should return. If you give me time, I'm sure I'll be able to talk to her again. If you let me try again, then I see. Then once you can talk to her, would you mind letting me talk as well? Yeah, of course. At this rate, you'll think I'm crazy in the head, and it'll be over. It would leave a bad taste in my mouth if I didn't clear up such a rude misunderstanding. How long does it take for the crystal ball's divine power to recover? Not much longer, I think. It might even be fine after one more night. Once his power comes back, I'll tell you. Thank you. I'll be waiting. If you do let me talk to Hanyu, how about I help you go back to your old world too? Does that sound good? Really? The simple word, help, made a deep impression on my mind. If someone other than Hanyu were around to understand me, it would obviously be a reassurance. And with two people, the time it would take to go through the piles of literature would be halved. I'd welcome the help of a cat at this point, so I was really glad. On the other hand, I had to think about what Yamamoto felt. For Yamamoto right now, I was a dangerous person who said she might even commit murder over a delusion. He was only speaking to me in such an understanding way to try and keep communication going. It didn't mean he actually believed me. But if Hanyu and Yamamoto could talk, it would clear all those fears away, and then he'd have to believe in the supernatural phenomena of Hanyu and me. But the real world didn't usually work out that well. After all, even if I made Hanyu talk to him, it could end in the way it always does, with Yamamoto not hearing anything. I could convey what she was saying, but he wouldn't believe it. But that didn't mean I had the option of not trying. I wouldn't give up before doing it. I'd try everything. Wasn't that the lesson I'd learned from this 100-year journey? Promise me. If you can talk to Hanyu, you have to believe me. Even though all she says is, oh, and doesn't really act like a god. I promise. If you let me talk to Hanyu, I'll believe your story. But if I can't talk to her, what will you do? I didn't actually think he'd reply like that, and it confused me. What do you mean, what will I do? I promise to believe your story if you win. Then why not promise me that if I win, you'll believe my story? Sounds fair, doesn't it? What story do you want me to believe? Well, I could imagine it without having to ask. He'd probably tell me to go to a largish hospital and have my head given a proper look at. Of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with my head, so he would come up with 0 results. When that happened, maybe they'd say I needed to take care of my mind and give me psychotropic drugs or something. I heard this from Verna once before. It's a drug that makes you incredibly lethargic, unable to do or even think anything at all. Dangerous patients think terrible things, and sometimes actually do them. The drugs stop that from happening. If they made me think that, or take that, it would be the same as killing me. It might seem like a fake condition, but it looked to me like the scales weren't in my favour to begin with. I shouldn't have told this stuff to a man I barely know. After all, I began to react to my decision. Regret. Could I fool him if I said, it was all a joke? Did you believe me? Nipa! If that was going to be my last resort, I could use it if my attempt to have Yamamoto and Hanyu communicate failed. I couldn't abandon the possibility that Yamamoto could be my ally without trying first. Then I'll keep a slot open tomorrow just for you, Rika-chan. Does that sound good? He made his suggestion, taking a notebook out of his coat and going over his other appointments. I nodded and said I agreed. Oh! That's a hell of a bit of confiding. But it's because she doesn't feel like anything's real. I mean, wouldn't it be an interesting theory if, like, that whack to the back of her head actually was making this, you know, making her think of other worlds and stuff, and it actually was all fake all along, all the games we've played? That would be interesting. I'm gonna, you know, it's not the case. The game so far has made you believe that's not the case, so, you know, you have to keep on tracking for Rika. Anyways, that'll do it for today. I really love that the episodes, for the most part, are a lot shorter than Yuminiko's. Like, obviously, we had that first one where it would have been like an hour and a half if I'd let it go that long. But since then, it's been like half an hour each, and I like that. That's a good length, I think, for a visual novel. So anyway, like I was saying, this has been Greenie XI. Hope you've enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again in a bit. I never know where this is going to go, even after reading the manga and stuff. So we'll see how things go for Rika. Maybe, just maybe, she'll be able to talk to Hanyu and convince Yamamoto even further, or at all really, of her existing. Thanks again for watching, folks. See you again in a bit.